Hello, my name is Neel and I welcome you all to the latest episode of Around the World in 7 Days. Like the Islamic State in Middle East, you must have heard about another insurgent group that is active in Yemen. Yemen, a neighboring country of Saudi Arabia. Violence between the Yemen government and this insurgent group has made enough headlines in the recent past. We are talking about Houthi rebels here. Although on the ground, it appears that the government's army and the rebel fighters are clashing, in reality, behind the scenes, the governments of countries are actually fighting. The Houthi rebels are believed to be backed by Iran, while Yemen's government is supported by Saudi-led group. Due to this proxy war between Saudi and Iran, these rebel groups are always in limelight. The Saudi-backed government and the Houthi rebels control different parts of Yemen. It has now been almost 8 years since this bloody struggle began. But now, there have been a few developments that indicate that both the groups are working towards a peace agreement. The US State Department has claimed that US Special Envoy Tim Lenderking is on a Gulf tour to try for a fresh settlement in Yemen and strengthen the peace process in the country. According to the US State Department, he will talk to Oman, Saudi Arabia, and other international parties involved in Yemen's case. On the other hand, in Yemen, the warring parties are exchanging hundreds of prisoners. This has raised hopes of a permanent ceasefire in Yemen. Here you will be intrigued about two things. First, why did this war happen in the first place? What are the reasons behind this conflict? And second, how did this ceasefire process become possible? We will address all these questions during our discussion, but first, let's understand the geographical location of Yemen. This Middle Eastern country is part of the Arabian Peninsula and is located at its southern end. It shares its border with Saudi Arabia in the north and Oman in the east. It is surrounded by water on the other two sides. To its west is the Red Sea and to its south is the Gulf of Aden. Its capital is Sana'a, the northern city of Yemen. Yemen's population is about 30 million, of which 70% are Sunni Muslims, while 30% are Shia Muslims. In our earlier episodes, we have discussed the conflicts in the Islamic world. We have explained how Muslims in the Islamic world are divided into Shias and Sunnis and how this religious division is often the cause of conflict in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia is the leader of Sunni Muslims, while Iran claims to be the leader of Shia Muslims. Apart from Iran, Shia Muslims are majority in Iraq, Azerbaijan, and Bahrain. Iran is considered to be leader of these countries. At the same time, Sunni Muslims are in majority in the Middle Eastern countries like UAE, Oman, Kuwait, etc. and Saudi Arabia is the leader of these countries. Yemen also is a victim of this religious conflict. The Houthis are Shiite fighters, while Sunni Muslims constitute the recognized government. Before the civil war broke out in Yemen in 1986, Yemen was divided into two parts, north and south, and both parts had separate governments. But in 1990, both parts of Yemen were unified, and Abdullah Saleh became the first president of unified Yemen. But in the same year, a student movement started in Yemen's northern city of Saida. The movement started under the banner of an organization called the Believing Youth, whose head was Hussein Bedardin al-Houthi. That's why it was named the Houthi movement. Houthi is the name of a tribe in Yemen. The Shias had raised their voices because of the marginalization of the Shia sect, which ruled this area for 1,000 years. The movement was therefore a result of growing Shia anger against the then President Saleh, who was a Sunni Muslim. These people were demanding their rights, but Saleh apparently ignored their demands. After this, Bedardin al-Houthi opened a front against the government. A turning point came in 2004 when the leader of movement, Hussein Bedardin al-Houthi, was killed by the Yemeni army. After this, the Houthi insurgency broke out in northern Yemen. These rebels captured many bases in Yemen. In 2010, a ceasefire agreement was reached between the rebels and the government, but the agreement did not last long. In the same year, a revolution broke out in the entire Arab world through Tunisia and Saleh had to leave the chair. The conflict escalated in 2014. Houthi rebels took control of Yemen's capital, Sana'a. In 2015, rebels captured the presidential palace. Yemen's government then asked for help from Saudi Arabia, and since then Saudi has been fighting against the Houthi rebels in Yemen. The two sides in the Yemen war include the Houthi rebel group on one side and the Saudi-led coalition, which has about 9 countries including the United Arab Emirates, America, France and Britain on the other. Now the question is, why is there a conflict? For this, we have to turn to the map. If we talk about Yemen, this country has a great strategic significance because of its location. It is located on the strait connecting the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean with the Gulf of Aden. This area is very important from a strategic point of view as 2/3 of the world's oil passes through here. Ships going from Asia to Europe and America also leave from here. Just below the southern part of Yemen is the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, which connects Asia to Africa and further to the Mediterranean Sea via the Suez Canal. This means that ultimately Asia connects to Europe and America through this route. It is one of the busiest routes. This region is very important for trade and shipping. Apart from this, there is immense oil here, and the interests of multinational companies are also linked to this. This is the reason why many European countries along with the US were encouraging Saudi Arabia in the Yemen war. Since Yemen has huge oil reserves, Saudi feels that by capturing these, it can become an even bigger player in the oil sector. This is the reason Saudi Arabia has been trying to dominate Yemen for decades. However, now Saudi is moving forward intending to end this war. Just recently, there was news of friendship between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Iran's old ally China has played a crucial role in this. It is believed that due to the improving relations between Saudi and Iran, the peace agreement in Yemen has been agreed upon. Now these countries want to leave the war and follow the path of economic development. This is the reason rumors of a ceasefire have intensified in Yemen. The peace roadmap calls for Saudi-led coalition forces to lift an air and sea blockade of Houthi rebel positions. Also, the rebels have offered security guarantees to Saudi Arabia, and in return, Saudi Arabia has promised extensive reconstruction in Yemen. However, it remains to be seen how successful the peace talks in Yemen will be. That's all in today's discussion. Let's note down the question based on today's story. The question is, what are the reasons behind peace talks after a long conflict in Yemen? Discuss.